This video will talk about IPs, in particular private, public, and elastic IPs with AWS. Now, I like to think that there are three types of IPs with respect to AWS: private, public, and elastic. I think some people might think that there are two types of IPs, but in my head, it helps me understand the IPs if I think of them as three types. So let's get into each type. So a private IP is an IP that is associated with a server. So every server in AWS has to have a private IP. And with AWS, this IP is static. It does not change. In the case of Microsoft Azure, you can select whether you want that IP to be static or dynamic. But with AWS, your private IP is static. It does not change. And this IP must fall within the range of the subnet in which the server resides. So let's take a look at a screenshot of the AWS console. So this server has a private IP, and this private IP falls within the range of the 10.0.1.0/24 subnet. So the theoretical range of IPs for this /24 subnet is 10.0.1.0 through 10.0.1.255. That's the theoretical range, but the actual range is more like 10.0.1.4 through 10.0.1.254 because Amazon reserves 5 IPs. And you can see that this private IP for this server falls within our actual range. 10.0.1.202 falls within the /24 subnet. And you can also see that this server does not have a public IP and it does not have an elastic IP. Now, a public IP is different from a private IP. A server may have a public IP, and this public IP can be used to access the server from outside of AWS. Now, the big thing that's really important is that Amazon owns this IP and controls this IP. So that means when the server is rebooted, the IP will change because Amazon reserves the right to deassociate and associate that IP with another resource in somebody else's account because Amazon owns and controls the public IP. So this is a screenshot of a server that has a private IP and has a public IP. And like I said before, this IP will change when you reboot the server because Amazon owns and controls this IP. And in this case, there's no elastic IP associated with this server. Now, the third type of IP is the elastic IP. And the difference here is that Amazon owns this IP, but you control it. So this IP is static, and this IP can be associated and disassociated with Amazon resources on the fly. And I think that's why they call it elastic IP, because you can just change it. It's elastic. You can change this IP to be associated with this server, then you can change it to be associated with another server. So I think that's where the name elastic comes from. To start off, you get 5 elastic IPs per AWS account. And if you need more, you can submit a support ticket and you can get that limit increased a little bit more. It's important to note that the cost of an elastic IP that is not associated with a server is more than the cost of an elastic IP that is associated with a server. So since IP4s are valuable, I mean, there's a limited number of IP4s in the world, Amazon wants to make sure that if you create an elastic IP, that you actually use it and bind it to something real. So to create an elastic IP, you simply go into the elastic IP section in the AWS console and click this button, Allocate Elastic IP Address. And then what that will do is you will receive an elastic IP in your account, and then it's up to you to associate that IP to a server. So here is a server that has an elastic IP associated with it. So it has a private IP address, it has a public IP address, and that public IP address and the elastic IP address are the same. So you can see that in this case, the public IP is actually blue and it's a link, and it's actually the same thing as the elastic IP. So I'm not really sure why the elastic IP address is way over on the left. I kind of think it would make more sense if Amazon put that over to the right and grouped all the IPs together, private, public, and elastic. That just seems to make more sense to me. So to summarize, here are the three IPs that we looked at. We first looked at a private IP, then we looked at a public IP, and then we looked at an elastic IP.